This is The Weekly on clickorlando.com with Justin Warmoth.
Good morning, I'm Justin Warmoth. Florida's legislative session ended on Friday with lawmakers agreeing on a $101.5 billion budget, a number that was really unthinkable a year ago as the economy collapsed during the pandemic. New legislation was also passed over the last 2 months, some of which has already been signed by Governor DeSantis. This morning, News 6 political expert and UCF history professor Dr. Jim Clark is here to break it all down.
What is in this budget that you think sticks out that Floridians should know about?
I think what it means is that we have got plenty of money. Just 4 or 5, 6 months ago, we were scared we were going into a depression with the COVID layoffs and everything happening in the stock market. When Governor DeSantis proposed a budget that was $5 billion less, lots of people, including Republicans, ganged up on him and said, "You're being too optimistic. We'll never get that much money." And here we are with far more money than we thought. We've gotten an extra $10 billion from the federal government. Things that we were worried about 6 months ago not only did not happen, but the opposite happened.
How much of a factor was Florida sort of opening ahead of a lot of other states? How much of that plays into the budget?
Yeah, I think so. I think we were able to draw people from other states. We've seen this with some conventions that have come here that were outlawed, if you will, in other states. So I think Governor DeSantis trying to keep this on kind of an even keel in the end has helped. As with the budget, I think there have been a lot of surprises in things that didn't happen. A great example of this is Bright Futures. 2 months ago, you and I were sitting here talking about the draconian legislation introduced by Senator Baxley of Ocala, which would have in effect given the state the right to decide the major of the state's children. And after much criticism and after huge petition drives, that all went away.
Yeah, they did pass something that I don't know what, it's not that severe, but they did pass something when it comes to Bright Futures. Can you explain what they did agree on?
Yeah, it's just a watered down bill to make the supporters happy. All it does is let you know which majors are going to affect you, which if you become a lawyer, hey, you can probably make this much money. If you become a doctor, you can make this much money. If you become a TV news anchor, you can only make this much money.
Good point. It's funny because it's like these kids are Bright Future Scholarship recipients. You would think that they would be able to make a decision on the major they'd like to pursue based on their high academic marks. But nevertheless, that seemed way worse in the beginning. And what was proposed was certainly more severe. There were also talks of major election reform and voting changes. We're not, people like to say, and compare to Georgia, obviously Florida is not in that same boat, but they did pass a few things when it comes to new changes when it comes to voting.
Yeah. At the beginning, the legislation could have been written by former President Trump. It was draconian and very much like Georgia. I think a few things happened here that were different. One is that we saw the pushback in Georgia and people did not want to go through that. But more importantly, things like early voting and ballot box drop-off have helped the Republicans. People don't realize that Governor DeSantis's margin of victory came from drop boxes. I think once people realized that, and Republicans were going to give away their edge, they backed off of this draconian measure, and it's pretty watered down. I think it's mostly to appease those who wanted some sort of election reform. But former President Trump made it clear. He said he would be ashamed of the legislature if they didn't include drop boxes and early voting. Neither of those are in there.
Right. And not to mention, Florida seemingly did well in the 2020 election when it comes to election security, getting everything counted compared to other states. It seemed like it was, to your point, very political to try to put these things in, put some new stipulations in when, by all accounts, it went well in 2020.
Not only did it go well, Justin, it went well for the Republicans.
Sure.
Why would you mess with something that's working for you?
Mm-hmm. Good point. One thing that did catch the eye, I think, of a lot of people, and it made national headlines as well, is the anti-riot bill, HB1, that the governor signed. He called it the strongest anti-rioting, pro-law enforcement measure in the country. Do you see this heading to court? Because I know that civil rights groups are calling it unconstitutional.
Yeah, it's going to be challenged. It'll be interesting to see what the courts rule on the state level. Remember, Governor DeSantis has named 3 conservative judges to the state Supreme Court during his tenure in office, so they may well vote to uphold him, but it'll be interesting to see what happens when it gets to the federal level.
Mm-hmm. A few other things, unemployment rate currently $275 a week. That bill seems dead. They were trying to increase that pay, especially with what so many people have been dealing with the unemployment system, how bad that is, and our benefits are not up to standard when you look across the country. And then another thing that seems that also caught some headlines: collecting sales tax on online purchases, generating $1 billion a year. I mean, that seems like that's something that a lot of people can agree on to generate more money for the state, right?
Well, except you and I are going to have to pay it when we order something
Correct.
online.
Mhm.
It's in effect a huge tax increase that really doesn't seem like a tax increase. People had been complaining for years, especially local merchants
Mhm.
who have to charge the sales tax, and therefore their price is higher compared to online concerns that don't have to charge it. So right away, you save 6% by buying online.
Yeah, Amazon, I think a major factor there. But when I say by all accounts, I mean both sides, Democrats and Republicans, seem to come to the agreement that this helps local businesses who really need the help as well.
Yeah, I was surprised it got through. Let's face it, Amazon has some of the best lobbyists in the country, as other online companies do. So it was something that's been talked about for a decade now and finally came to fruition.
Talk to me about the toll roads. I know that was scrapped, but not really. There's still some. It's still unclear about what this means. I know there's a lot of opposition when it comes to these toll roads through some rural parts of Florida.
Yeah, I think this was the idea of a former state Senate president who pushed it through 3 toll roads totaling 300 miles.
Mhm.
One in kind of going from Central Florida down to Southwest, and 2 heading up towards the Panhandle, Citrus County, and on up. Almost immediately, there was pushback, not only from environmentalists, but even from people who lived in the area who said, wait a minute, we like being in an isolated area. That's why we're here. We don't want a toll road running through our land.
Now, lawmakers also agreed on a few controversial bills after Dr. Clark and I taped the interview, one of which allows the state to fine social media companies for banning certain users, including political candidates. Another measure is aimed at law enforcement, adding use of force training requirements and limiting the use of chokeholds. And lawmakers also passed legislation requiring daycare facilities to install alarms in their vans, letting drivers know if someone is still inside. We'll be right back.
This is The Weekly on ClickOrlando.com with Justin Warmoth.
Welcome back. During this year's legislative session, Governor DeSantis signed a sweeping gambling deal with the Seminole tribe that could bring legalized sports betting to the Sunshine State. But already it's facing pushback from anti-casino groups, and many logistical and legal challenges remain. News 6 political expert Dr. Jim Clark is back now to explain the deal, plus the impact of Florida's census results.
One thing that has not gone through the legislature but has made headlines, and the governor has signed the deal here with the Seminole tribe when it comes to gambling and sports betting as well in the state of Florida, something that so many people already do in the state illegally. But this is going to generate about $2.5 billion for Florida, 30-year agreement. What do you make of this deal and some of the legal challenges that could await?
Yeah, I think there will be challenges, but remember, the opposition to gambling in Florida has come mostly from the Orlando resorts. Disney did not want a casino next door to siphon away its customers and their money. So that's been the bulk of the opposition. This does not in any way threaten the attractions. Nobody's going to place a $2 bet on an NFL game instead of going to Disney. So I think he got around what had traditionally been the opposition. We also saw very little opposition from what had traditionally been church groups opposed to gambling, things like that. So I think this might be a good compromise. It brings the state money. It recognizes what, as you point out, has already been going on.
Sure.
So it seems to be fairly popular.
Also adding some new things for the Seminole Casino, the Seminole, the Hard Rock Casino, and the other casinos that the Seminole tribe run and operate. But I think a lot of people just say, well, didn't we just vote on an amendment? And that was in 2018, the Amendment 3, which requires statewide voter approval for future expansions of gambling. And so people might say, wait, didn't Floridians pass that? How was the governor able to go around that in a way? And because it hasn't gone to the legislature just yet, there will be a special session that they'll hear this, but that's where it gets a little tangled.
Yeah, there may be some compromises in the end. There may be some ways they figure out around this. But one way or the other, I think, the governor is not only the governor, he's an attorney. So I'm sure he and his legal staff have maneuvered a way around the amendment.
This is something that for so long, though, has been proposed and brought up. I mean, it seems seemingly like a decade, maybe more, talking about just sports betting and gaming in general, online gambling as well. So many states already have approved this, and states that didn't have casinos in the first place, and now they're putting this in with the rise of sports gambling. The history of it is significant, and it kind of caught, I think, people by surprise when the news came across and the press release was put out, because this is something that I think seemingly Floridians just say, well, that's not going to pass this year.
I think a lot of people were surprised by this. I think the governor did this to take the lead and to challenge people to make their objections to it. And much as he signed the tax increase bill for online shopping kind of in secret, this was done fairly quietly and then announced. So I think the legislature is going to have a voice in this. I think lobbyists will have a voice in this. But obviously, I think the governor has scouted this out pretty well, and I imagine something will come of it.
This week, we also got the results of the census, and there were predictions and reports that Florida would probably get one, but a lot of people thought 2 congressional seats. We ended up with 1 additional congressional seat. Talk about the impacts that has not only on Florida's population, but politically speaking as well.
Yeah, this was clearly something that the Republicans, I bet, wish they could do over again. This is a mess for them. You'll recall that former President Trump kind of lobbied against the census, tried to cut off funding for it, tried to speed it up, tried to make it difficult by adding the citizenship question, trying to discourage people as much as possible. So the governors of 3 states, Arizona, Texas, and Florida, followed suit. They did not spend money promoting the census until the very last minute. other states like New Mexico, New York, spent state money and got much better results. So Texas did pick up 2 seats, but everybody thought they'd pick up 3.
Right.
Arizona picked up no seats. Everybody thought they'd pick up 1, and Florida picked up 1, but everybody thought we'd pick up 2. So I bet the Republicans are kind of kicking themselves over this.
Because
And
they're the ones who are going to be setting the districts for this.
yeah,
That's why.
I mean, basically, they have said no to 4 Republican electoral votes because we would have gotten another electoral vote. Texas would have gotten another one in Arizona. They are saying no to billions of dollars in federal money. All the federal money is decided based on population. So when they send us a check for help schools, it's based on our population. So people are just waking up and saying, wait a minute, there seems to be a serious undercount here, and it costs Florida and probably the Republicans dearly.
And keep in mind, I think our viewers need to be reminded about the census, and that's done every decade. There are no do-overs. That is set in stone for the next decade. So this is what we have moving forward. And the undercount, as you brought up, I mean, it seems obvious.
It does.
Yeah, it's
It
an
does,
obvious undercount.
And you compare it to New York, which everybody thought was going to lose 2 seats.
Yeah.
And you'll recall that in the last decade, we passed New York in population. New York only lost 1 seat, and that was only by less than 100 votes. And it's because they had made superhuman efforts to get people to respond. So they're going to be able to make money off of their efforts, where Florida will lose money.
Yeah. The spinoff again is that this also brings redistricting. That is, we could do a full show on redistricting and the history of it and the gerrymandering that has transpired. But moving forward, what's the timeline on drawing up these new districts, and obviously Republicans having the control to do so?
Yeah. The Republicans initially will control the process in the legislature. However, we passed something called a fair district amendment. The voters did. And that means that they can't go too crazy on gerrymandering, what's called gerrymandering, and carving out districts just for Republicans. But the last time they did try that, it ended up in the courts, and the legislature lost much of its control. So it'll be interesting to see if the legislature tries to do it accurately the first time to keep some control, or whether the courts end up doing it.
And my thanks to Dr. Clark for his time this week. For more on Florida's legislative session and the latest political headlines, just head to clickorlando.com/politics. I'm Justin Warmoth. Hope you have a great Sunday.